I think what makes a good founder doesn't necessarily make a good leader. They can be actually very different qualities. So I think what makes a really good leader is somebody who's very calm and very even and very focused, and somebody who listens and absorbs and collaborates, but then is decisive, accumulates all of the feedback, but then makes a decision and sets a course in a very confident way.
I'm Melanie Barr. Welcome back to the She Built It podcast, your go-to place to empower you to live the life and business that you crave. I'm here to talk about everything from having the courage to make life and career leaps to the details of how to lead effectively, create successful teams, implement strategies for growth, and infuse tech innovation. I'm here to celebrate your wins and navigate through your challenges. I live in the city now, but I grew up in a town of 1,000 people. I've navigated major life leaps, a senior level corporate career, worked in professional sports, and now as a successful entrepreneur who loves business, technology, family, and making meaningful connections with you and the She Built It community. I also love a good workout and dose of self-care. Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. So turn up the audio, open your favorite notes app, grab your favorite drink, and here we go. Welcome back to the She Built It podcast. Thank you for joining us, Amy. Tell us about Skinfix and what led you to start your business.
Thank you, Melanie. It's so amazing to be here. So Skinfix is a clean, dermatologist-developed skincare line that is sold at Sephora and on skinfix.com. And I started it because I worked in the beauty industry for a long time, in New York, and then in London, England, and moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada when I had my first baby, and thought I had left beauty behind. And I ended up meeting a woman here who had a formula that her great-great-grandfather had created in England in the 1870s. He had been a chemist and had compounded a balm to heal skin. And when I saw the balm, I was captivated by the formulas. It had a lot of active ingredients in it, but also over the decades the family had been making this balm, they had collected letters from customers, from people that had used it to treat some pretty serious skin issues, things like diabetic foot ulcers and psoriasis and eczema. And they had poured their hearts out about how this balm from 1870 had worked when nothing else had, and had cleared up their skin and given them their quality of life back. And there were some pretty profound stories. So I thought, I love beauty, I love skincare, and who would have thought that here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, I could actually start a beauty company. So I ended up buying the brand from the founder, and she trademarked a great name, Skinfix, and started to build from there.
I love hearing that. And I love that you did it after you had your first child, because so often when you're very business minded, because I was too, it's like you have that pull of wanting to be there for your kids, but then also wanting to build a business. Can you tell us a little bit about what Skinfix does for someone who purchases it?
Yeah, similar to you, I actually took 6 years off initially. And so my kids were a little older when I had the itch to go back, and then was introduced to the original founder. Skinfix, initially, the original products were created to treat eczema primarily and dermatitis. And then we created a line of therapeutics to treat rosacea and keratosis pilaris and acne. But as we were developing all of these therapeutic products and working closely with the dermatologist community to understand the concerns and the conditions and what was happening to the physiology of the skin, they kept talking about the skin barrier and how the skin barrier was very much a critical element to all of the skin concerns. So with eczema, there's a deficiency of ceramides in the barrier. With rosacea, it's a deficiency of fatty acids. So I said, what if we could actually heal the barrier itself, get underneath all of these concerns and go to the root cause? So I did a lot of research into the skin barrier and barrier health, and ultimately created a patented complex of skin-similar lipids and signal peptides and folic acid that is clinically proven to help replenish the ceramides and fatty acids in the skin. So it actually changes the physiology. So it doesn't just sit on the surface and hydrate or pull water into the skin. It's actually helping the skin to regenerate its own ceramides and fatty acids. We are really focused on skin barrier health at the core. And then we have a line of therapeutics that sort of treat acute skin concerns.
Thank you for sharing that, because we walk into Sephora and we're inundated with so much. And we don't always know the science behind it and all of the thought that has gone into it. And I love the color of your products because I also, when I walk into Sephora, I think of ways that different products are standing out on the shelf. I don't know why I'm thinking that. Maybe it's I put on my business mind when I go in there, but it's such a pretty bright blue.
Yeah, it's a Dodgers blue. Initially, when we launched the product, we were actually in mass distribution. We were at Target and we were put into the set with dermatological skincare. So we were up against CeraVe and Aveeno and Amlactin. And I had 3 little SKUs to treat eczema at the time and not the budgets that these big multinationals had. And I also thought that the derm skincare space was all very same. Everything was white and black and very kind of medicinal and clinical. It's gotten a little bit more fun, but at that time it was pretty boring. I thought bringing a bit of color and fun while still remaining credible and clinical would be not only helpful to jump off the shelf, but also a little more fun and optimistic and whimsical. At the end of the day, you want a product that is a fun experience to use. So we made sure that we talked to the dermatologist community and weren't going too far because we wanted them to still see the brand as credible. Wanted to also bring a bit of color and fun to skincare.
How did your early career play into building out Skinfix as you launched it?
I had worked in beauty from the beginning. In university, I worked for Clinique in the summers at the cosmetic counter at department stores back in the day and learned how to sell and learn the business from that perspective. And then right out of university, I went to L'Oréal. I was super lucky to get a job as an assistant product manager, which today would be an MBA level job. Back then, in the early 90s, I still slipped in with an undergrad, and I basically had 5 years of the most incredible business education that I could ever have had anywhere. At L'Oréal, at a very young age, they give you a lot of responsibility. So I had everything from P&L responsibility through to working on the creative ads and working on the products with the product development teams. And then I went from there to business school and then to Coty and then to Estee Lauder, where I worked for Jo Malone in the UK on fragrance. So I feel like it's such a great brand and she's an incredible entrepreneur. So I really had that sort of classical training in the beauty industry. I understood how to get something made and how to contemplate cost of goods and what kind of testing needed to get done. And that helped a lot in terms of getting it off the ground. And also a lot of our products are OTC, so pharmaceutical drugs. So we have very different regulations that govern how we manufacture and how we distribute. It helped a lot to have a lot of that experience so that it wasn't as intimidating as it might be.
With all of your experience, was there a challenge that you came up against that you were able to overcome? Just because I know our listeners, a lot of what we do, so fun, but we all go through challenges. So is there one that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think for us, we were really very much an early entrant into the clean skincare space, but we were really early with clean clinical and clean clinical therapeutic. We were a decade ahead of the market, which is great on one hand and really challenging on another because you've got to really educate the consumer. And so while brands were just starting to talk about natural ingredients, we were already like, oh, ours are clinically proven to do X, Y, and Z and treat eczema. And here's a published study. And it was just like, whoa. For us, it was very hard to figure out what the right channel of distribution was for us, how we were going to get that message across. And it made sense initially to go into mass. And I had actually met a head of beauty from Target in an elevator at a women's wear conference. And she said, oh my gosh, please come and see us. And it was a great partnership, but in a mass environment, it required too much education. It was just too big of a story and the client wasn't there yet. And so we made the decision to pivot to Sephora. And we were really lucky that Sephora saw the future and really saw that barrier health had huge potential in Sephora and saw the potential for therapeutics in Sephora. So we made that pivot, but that was a huge challenge and a costly endeavor. We had to exit mass and then we had to repackage and relaunch with Sephora. So that was a significant challenge at that time, is figuring out what channel was going to provide enough support to help educate and build the brand.
And it's interesting when thinking about eczema. I have not experienced it, but my daughter, who's 10, had it for a little while and it's since gone away. I don't know much about it, but you look for things to be able to put on it. I had some medical grade from a dermatologist, but if you haven't had it before, you don't know what to put on it that's not going to further irritate the skin.
Yeah, we actually are blessed to have the chairman of the National Eczema Association on our board, our scientific advisory board, Dr. Peter Leo. And he's a really interesting guy because while he's a medical doctor and deals with very tough cases and works with a lot of therapeutics and prescriptions, he also is very into the homeopathic, naturopathic modalities as well. So he helped us formulate our most recent eczema collection by pulling in the best of the sort of scientifically validated holistic therapies. It is a complicated disease. I like to say skin is complicated and skincare really needs to be also. Our marketing message needs to be simple enough for people to digest and want to buy it. But really, a lot of rigor goes into our formulations because it's required. Treating eczema is not easy. You're dealing with a lot of different symptoms and a lot of different factors, and it's not just one thing that's going to help. It needs to be the symphony of ingredients. We try to take the complexity out of it for the end client and really provide something clinically validated.
Yeah, I went through that because when she first experienced it, I put something on it and she said, no, that doesn't feel better. That feels worse. So I thought, okay, I really need to do some research on this to figure out how to best help her.
Yeah, and Dr. Leo will even say a lot of the eczema therapeutics that are prescriptions will have things like propylene glycol in them that are known to be highly irritating to the skin. So unfortunately, the prescription pharmaceutical industry hasn't quite caught on to the fact that if you're trying to treat a disease, deliver the active ingredient with other things that aren't going to further irritate. So
yeah,
it unfortunately
to the homeopathic first.
I do as well. Often the prescription's needed, and someday hopefully the pharmaceutical companies will make better prescription formulas.
What do you think is the most important element of leadership when growing a business?
It's an interesting question. I, being the founder, I was the CEO up until 3 weeks ago, very happily handed over the baton to a new CEO. Very excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you, 10 years in. But it's interesting because I think what makes a good founder doesn't necessarily make a good leader. They can be actually very different qualities. So I think what makes a really good leader is somebody who's very calm and very even and very focused and somebody who listens and absorbs and collaborates, but then is decisive, accumulates all of the feedback, but then makes a decision and sets a course in a very confident way. I don't think founders are always necessarily good at that. I'm not sure I was necessarily good at that because as a founder, you're chasing shiny pennies and new ideas, and you have to constantly have your synapses firing. And I don't know that brings a lot of calm. And so he takes and pulls it into, okay, and this is what we're going to focus on. And this is how I'm going to leverage the team to do what we need to do. So leadership requires a little bit more of a level demeanor.
And most entrepreneurs have a lot of ideas and good ideas, just a lot of ideas. And I understand, with all the new tech, I want to know how everything works, but there's no way you can use every platform. At times you just have to dial that back.
Yeah, I worked for Jo Malone for years, and I remember the ideas coming at me. I was the head of marketing, so it was like, we want to do a vending machine, or we want to do this, so we want to do that. I was like, okay, but I get it. That's what makes a good entrepreneur.
Yeah, they have one of my most favorite home fragrances that is just so good.
Which one?
It's got lime and basil.
Oh, lime, basil, mandarin?
Yes.
That's their sort of heritage scent.
Yes, but when I read that, I thought, I cannot believe that is a scent that is just so amazing. With the ingredients, I would not have thought to put those together.
Yeah, she really disrupted fragrance and brought all sorts of interesting scents together. And it's nice. A genius.
What do you look for when building your teams and building sustainable company cultures?
The most important thing is really a passion for the brand and for the mission and for the product. It's taken me a lot of time to figure out that's just critical and essential, because I think a lot of times you think it's okay if they're not really into it because they're really good at X, Y, or Z. And maybe in finance, it's actually okay. But the rest of the company, especially in marketing or sales or education, if you don't really have a passion and believe, it's felt by the client in the end of the day. You have to believe in the mission. To be part of an indie beauty brand, which is a highly competitive space and incredibly fast paced, you have to be able to work high-low. Nobody can be a diva. Nobody can be too precious. Everybody has to pack boxes. Everybody has to roll up their sleeves. So if they can't work high-low, that's a problem. But they also have to be really passionate about the brand and the mission and the history too, not just, yes, we want to focus on the future, but you really have to understand the history and the DNA of the brand to be able to create the best future for the brand as well. So I've come to understand that's more critical than I realized initially.
It's so true. And that's so much better for the team member too, because we know how we feel when we wake up passionate and enjoying what we're doing every day. It's like the 80-20, like as long as you love it 80%, you can put up with the other 20.
It's so true.
Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. We've talked a lot about business. What is one thing that you do for you to make sure that you're finding and living your joy?
I love that. I just listened to a podcast with, I don't know if Elise Lunan, she's on my board actually. She used to be head of content for Goop, but she does a more spiritual podcast. But the woman she was interviewing was talking about your zone of genius. And it's the thing that you can do really well, but brings you joy. So it's not just there are things that you can do well, but you don't necessarily like doing. Like I can be super organized and productive with getting through emails and meetings, but I don't love it. But my zone of genius, I think in the business is definitely product and product development and really digging in and understanding the science and understanding ingredients. That's where I'm in my happy place. On a personal level, I'm a spiritual seeker. I was a religion major in university. I just love spirituality and astrology and all different types of spiritual systems, whether it be Enneagram or human design or so. I need to spend time there as well in order to feel fulfilled and happy and balanced in my life.
It's nice. It takes you out of your business mind, which you probably live so much of your life in or have.
Yes, definitely. It really does. It really. And I find it fills me with energy when people ask me to do a little amateur reading of their astrology or talk about the Enneagram, or it just makes me really excited because it's a part of my life that I feel really passionately about and really connected to.
Now I have to ask, when is your birthday?
May 22. I'm a Gemini.
I'm May 19th.
Okay. So you're a Taurus.
Yes.
Very different.
Yeah,
different animals.
Not far off though.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm a Sag moon and Sag rising as well. So I'm more Saggy than I am Gemini.
My husband is May 7th and my twins are Scorpios. And it's funny because I always either dated a Taurus or a Scorpio when I was dating. And then when I knew I was having Scorpios, I thought, oh, I'll get along with you.
Very compatible.
I didn't go that deep into the thought process, but it's funny.
You're very compatible. You're very earthy. You're very grounded. That's good. Our family's an astrological cornucopia.
Rainbow.
Yeah, it's a lot of differences.
Yeah. I joke that we get our birthdays over in May and November, and then we're done for the year.
I love it. 2 big celebrations. That's great.
Yeah. So nice to meet you.
Great to meet you as well.
Thank you for sharing the Skinfix story with us. Please share with us how and where we can find you.
You can find us on Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and all the social media platforms, Skinfix Inc., and on our website as well, skinfix.com. And you can find us at Sephora as a brand.
Thank you for joining us today. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me at hello@shebuiltit.com on our She Built It website or at She Built It on social. Thank you to my editor, Rich Streffolino, who always makes us sound good. Until next time, let nothing stop you from experiencing the life and business that you crave.